Many years ago, I did a project that's probably about 25 years ago, where we remodeled the kitchen, and I made a big mistake and had to pay for a door to be moved, an exterior door, 30 inches down the wall in order to accommodate for my mistake. What happened, to be really simple, is that when I was measuring, I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I was trying to do too many measurements at once, and as I did so, I added the door dimension in there, or sorry, yeah, the door dimension in there twice to the wall. So when I was counting for the door dimension, one of the dimensions I added in there was the door, and I added to the wall instead of just keeping one dimension for the door. Anyway, silly mistake. When I went back to draft and draw it up, and I was adding the dimensions in there, so I gave 30 more inches of space to the wall than what there was, because I took the 30-inch door, 36 inches, whatever it was, and put that into the wall as it was. So I drew in that much more cabinetry, and then I obviously did not verify that dimension before I, we did the order. So we'll come back to that. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But first, let's talk about AI and what AI suggests. So my question to AI, by the way, in this case was, what choices in today's kitchens are very susceptible to mistakes in measurements or specifications? So AI says the cabinet and appliance fit, number one. They talk about the cabinet and appliance gaps, clearance for doors and drawers, ensuring that all of these fit. Yeah, these are very real considerations. I've actually had a manufacturer that gave us the width and height. It was, I won't say the brand to be respectful to the brand, because everybody makes mistakes. But the cutout dimensions they gave us had been reversed. So the width was the height dimension, and the height was the width dimension. So it was messed up. There was a mistake made. It was from the manufacturer. They had given us the specs. We just followed those specs, and that didn't match. So you can only do the best you can with the information you're given, but you do want to make sure that you've covered your bases. So yes, very much those are factors when considering issues that might arise with measurements. And measurements in kitchens is, one of the most important. Of course, getting the right color and skew, making sure that your, walkway spaces, landing spaces. I've got another video, by the way, that talks about the basics of kitchen layouts and kitchen design, and all kinds of other videos about avoiding mistakes by doing things the right way. Please, share comments, by the way, if you like. If you disagree with either AI or myself on some of the things that could occur here. But if you have other suggestions, or if you like the content, please do subscribe. I'm sure we'd love to have you more. It suggests in here countertop overhang and sink cutouts as well. That's pretty obvious in my opinion. Sinks are a little bit of a challenge that I'm going to add a little enhancement to that from my take as a designer. Nowadays, if you're watching any, Pinterest or Instagram or HGTV, you're starting to see a lot more of these sinks that are large format, sometimes integrated with the countertops. You're seeing a lot of apron front sinks with a lot of variation in depth and height and how it transitions to the cabinets. Those, in my opinion, take a lot more judgment than just putting, than what AI suggests, just taking it at face value. In fact, we have a gigantic project one of my other companies is doing right now, where us and the plumber and the designer and the contractor all had to get together to review how these apron front sinks were transitioning to the cabinets and how to accommodate around it to make it look the way that we all really want it to look. So the days of an apron front sink being just a blocky sink, one option, has been completely gone now for a few years, but it's definitely getting much more substantial than that. It says in here, AI says ventilation hood sizing and placement, incorrect sizing, especially, by the way, to me, enhance upon that, your, like the wood hood here behind me, sorry, which hand do I use it? The wood hood here behind me, the insert that fits inside that, see how that would, the hood here starts to taper. A lot of those inserts, sometimes if you're not paying close attention, you might not quite be able to get it exactly where you want because the taper interferes with that. So very much a consideration. Out of, I don't know, maybe 100, 150 wood hoods I've done for clients for projects, I bet 10% of them we've had problems with the fitting, sometimes 15 to 20%. We've almost gone to the point, because it's just too painful to have that high of a percentage of mistakes. We've gone to the situation where if we get a wood hood, does the company offer an insert that they have already verified the insert will fit into that wood hood without any issues. Okay, fourth thing that AI says here is island and walkway clearances, such as insufficient walkways. When we're drawing a kitchen for kitchen design, my recommendation is don't try to identify your walkway space on a drafted plan between the say the perimeter wall cabinets and the island, because most drafting plans do not differentiate between the face of the cabinet and the drawer fronts and the handles, hardware, or the overhang of the countertop. There are just too many fine lines there in such a small amount of distance that it can look busy and confusing. So they just simply don't do it. So oftentimes when you're snapping dimensions to show how much of a walkway space there is, it snaps to the face of the cabinet. So if the cabinet's 24 inches deep from the back to the face, you have a gap and then a door or drawer front, and that sticks out about an inch, and then your overhang for your countertop sticks about a half an inch or slightly more than that to give a place for drips to not hit the face of the cabinets when it comes off the countertop. So be aware of that when the spacing is being identified on a plan. Then by the time you get everything in there and get it done, your overhangs of your countertops is going to push that walkway space in 3 inches more than what you planned for. So we don't do that anymore. We'll snap from the wall to the back of the island, and then we'll do the math between there, because it's so easy to get sidetracked or distracted or confused by what it says that the dimension is if you're snapping in between them. So hopefully that makes sense. If you don't know, ask questions. I'll try to clarify a little bit more in writing or show you an example. The last thing it says here is electrical outlet placement. Yeah, this is definitely, and the more that we're doing with electrical, with wireless charging, with, perhaps you're putting, a place to plug your laptops in, or maybe you're putting TVs in, or you're, want to have a space to connect your small appliances easily. Where those outlets go do matter a lot, even in an island especially. So just make sure that you're planning those out properly. In some cases, it might be okay to wait till after everything's done and then place the outlet, but most of the time that's not the case. Like literally 90% of the time, identify so that any detail of your cabinetry, any seams, any functional items are not interfered with by where the electrical outlets go. So I'm going to suggest, like I shared with you that story at the beginning, measure 3 times. Measure once at the very beginning of the process when you're just getting started with the concepts and ideas. This can relate to new construction as well. Oftentimes in new construction, 2 measurements is sufficient. But on a remodel, I would do 1 measurement, then get into the minutia of all the planning and ideas. Come back and do a 2nd measurement when you're about ready to finalize everything, before everything is good. Oftentimes that's sufficient, but I would measure a 3rd time after I've finalized the materials that I want. So in other words, the first measurement is conceptual. 2nd measurement is for pricing purposes. The 3rd measurement is for making sure I didn't miss anything. Does that make sense? So hopefully that helps you with yours. Write down every measurement, 1 measurement at a time. Now, I will tell you, because I've tried to do the opposite. I've tried to write down, measure from the wall to the window, the casing, from the window casing, top and bottom, and then maybe above the finished floor measurement from the bottom of the window casing. I would never do that again. So do 1 measurement at a time. That way you can avoid making mistakes of trying to add measurements or trying to remember them, okay? Keep your notebook next to you, take the measurement. There's a lot of other tools and apps you can use to measure with your phone, or apps that you can measure and it'll keep track of for you. Some of those work pretty good. I would just verify them in small, inexpensive projects before I get into the kitchen remodel next. Don't do anything else while you're measuring, by the way. What I mean by that is if you're having a conversation, stop the conversation, maybe send the other person in the other room, have them grab a snack or something for a while you're doing the measurements. I've had plenty of situations where I'm trying to talk. Now, my wife is much better at multitasking than I am, but but I still would not recommend to do that. You don't want any distractions. It's just too expensive a mistake to try to measure and talk and maybe even chew gum at the same time, right? So if you like what I'm doing here, I'm Shad. This is a kitchen design. Would sure love for you to subscribe and share this with others who can benefit and save some money and watch more videos. Thanks, guys.